Table. This is Jonathan Albin. This is Nikos RPG, and this is the Game Master Soapbox. Tonight we're going to be talking about, as we did this morning, about Game Masters. We're now going to be talking about players and what are their roles, obligations, duties within a game to keep the games going. One of the things that often is overlooked is how much it depends on the players and the characters really working together to get the story out and understandable to everyone, to everybody's enjoyment. We want the games to be fun and exciting, but many times people expect the game master to carry all the weight. And the truth of the matter is that the players are just as responsible in some ways to carry the game forward. So as we look at these duties, obligations, and responsibilities, we want to make sure that you get everything you need in terms of having the best and greatest games possible. So make sure you click all the buttons down below and let the algorithm know that you are part of our audience. Alrighty, so let's get started, shall we?
Absorbing damage is the name of your game. From the claws of monsters or the heat from a ball of flame. Our strength in numbers is a roll of the dice.
Alrighty. At the core of every role-play game is a shared experience. A story crafted not just by the game master, but by everyone at the table. Responsibilities are not strict rules, but best practices that help make the game better for everyone involved. So the first of these is, of course, you need to respect the table. I'm not referring, of course, to the piece of wood or plexi or whatever that you're playing on, but I'm referring, of course, to the collective group of players. RPGs are social games, and that means being mindful of everyone at the table. Sometimes it's easier than others, sometimes it's downright a challenge, but we have to make sure we let everyone have their moments. During that, therefore, we need to take care of several considerations that we may not have thought of. For example, limiting the side conversations, being mindful of whose turn it is and giving them due respect while they're running their turn, and to try to stay engaged in the story minute by minute, even when it's not your turn. There's some secret ways to do that, and I'll be doing another video on that in the near future. The second thing is to embrace the story. Now, this doesn't mean you have to accept everything that the game master says at face value. They might have an idea or an inkling of where the story might go, but the players, of course, should have at least a modicum, or if not an overabundance of agency, so that they can take the story and run with it wherever they want to. But we really need the players at the table to be more than just rolling dice. They need to be engaging with the world, responding to the events that occur within it, and make choices that reflect your character's perspective, not that of you as the player up above and behind them, so to speak. That also means you need to support the group. A great RPG experience isn't just about winning. I know I've done a video on winning, and it'll be posted here, hopefully. But the idea is that the winning can't be the focus of it, because the game mechanics of a roleplay game are not focused on the winning conditions. So it's about helping your teammates, encouraging new players, and thinking about what your actions are and would be and what would mean to the group and how it impacts them moment by moment. Of course, this also means that you should be communicating clearly. If something's not working, either a game mechanic or a social issue, or perhaps your character's arc, or there's something just doesn't feel right, make sure you talk to the game master and perhaps to other players about it collectively so that it can be fixed. Most of these problems can be solved with open and respectful communication, and without it, it's impossible to rectify or put away these issues. Just like a game master needs to plan and adapt, players should be able to engage with the story and be flexible with their outcomes in ways that will enrich and improve the experience of the players across the board. Oops, didn't move my. That should have been moved up. I did it again. And there we go. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the duties of a player and what the players need to do to make sure the game becomes as maximally enjoyable as they can be. Being a player is more than just showing up. It means that you're actively contributing to the story and being present in the scenes. Duties are things the players should do to help the story and the game master, although there's no mandate, of course, but these are things that by doing them you are giving a benefit to the outcome of the game session in ways that are immeasurable. First of all, you want to make sure you know your character. It doesn't mean you have to memorize its stats. You don't necessarily have to even have a clue about the rules of the game, but you should understand your character's abilities, background, whatever mechanisms the game master is utilizing for that, and its motivations. Why would the character be doing what it's doing? We had a conversation tonight in game about one of the players who thought that they had to have an agenda in a given scene rather than an agenda for the character's progression, and so therefore they were trying to force an action that at once did not seem to be helpful to the story and certainly was distracting to the rest of the group. And by clarifying the character's position and how the character was processing the information, we were able to rectify the situation fairly quickly. The second thing is to make sure that you participate actively. Many players will sit and wallflower and watch what other people do and then either immediately glom onto that action as something they also want to do, or conversely try to counteract that action either by operating faster or operating in a different way to make the choices that other players are making either impossible or at least very difficult. So to actually counteract that, you need to be able to speak up, make decisions, and get involved, because it's your character's choices that make the decisions and make the course of the path of the game itself. Next thing is to engage with the world itself. Game masters, especially those that are story builders and world builders, have gone to perhaps great lengths to build out the story and the personas you might meet, and so treat the game world as if it is real, as if the interactions are real time. And when you do that, then you react as the persona you're playing would, but you also are looking to increase your player's awareness, your character's awareness, of the scene and the world itself. So make sure you ask questions, investigate, and engage in communications with the NPCs you might run into along the way. Now, the next thing is to make sure that you do what you can to balance your spotlight time. It's fun to have the big moments, but if there are 4 or 5 players at the table, any given player can't have them all. So you want to help and to encourage the more timid or quiet players and share the stage with them, perhaps bringing them onto the stage in a way that way you're no longer dominating the session, but you're also helping to encourage those new players to feel like part of the process and to begin to see how roleplay can actually interact and change their lives. This next one's kind of big, and that's the idea of working with the storyteller and not against him. One of the biggest obligations, or duties I should say, that a player has is to play the game. Now, the GM is not your opponent, and that is sometimes difficult to understand when you haven't played role-playing games before, but realize that the storyteller is actually a collaborator. While it's fine to try to change the world and make things happen, avoiding story hooks just to prevent the game master's satisfaction or to follow a path the game master has sort of laid out is a challenge. It's problematic because you're being contrarian just for the sake of being contrarian, and constantly derailing the session can make it harder for everyone else to enjoy the game. Now, if your game master is a railroader, just encourage him to watch my videos here at Nikos RPG, and I'll do what I can to help. But the reality is that the game master is not in competition with the players, and really endeavors to make the story as exciting and interesting as he can for the players, so that they get the maximum benefit out of the game. Now, do realize that these rules are not intended to restrict you. These recommendations we're making, these are guidelines to make the game flow better and ensure that the maximum number of players have the most fun at the table. Next, we're going to talk about obligations. No matter what game you're playing, there are fundamental expectations that apply to every player. These aren't just best practices, they're core principles that ensure that the game will remain enjoyable, fair, and inclusive. I know that's become kind of a buzzword, but the reality is that we want everybody playing, and so let's find ways to make that happen. First one is respect. Everybody wants respect, and everybody can provide it to others. It fundamentally means don't be a bully. Don't gatekeep. Don't establish yourself as the be-all, end-all, but do what you can to help others feel comfortable. This should go without saying, but since RPGs are a social activity, we want to respect fellow players, and doing so is really essential to the fun of the game and the very purpose for the engagement. That means we're going to want to follow the social contract. Now, that's whether you're talking about house rules, some table expectations, in certain communities, safety tools. Honor the arrangements made at the beginning of the game. It keeps the game running smoothly and ensures that everyone feels safe and included. Now, these are not things that I generally run into in my groups because I'm pretty open about our Session Zero policy, and so we get to the meat of the issues early on, and therefore we have already taken steps to preempt this kind of difficulty, but still we need to remember that it's possible that something might have slipped through the cracks. This next one is kind of funny. That is to play your game in good faith. Many people who have come into role-playing games from the world of board games, or even more importantly, video games, they have an unhealthy lack of trust, or conversely, an unhealthy overstating of their faith in the storyteller or the game master. That means that they tend to metagame, exploit rules, and try to disrupt the game just for the sake of doing so. Now, it's fine to be clever and to pull off a fast one once in a while, but twisting the game into something unplayable is really unhelpful and hurts other players. That means also the respect that we spoke about earlier applies to the game master and to the game session. Commit to the game that you intend to play. Show up on time, be prepared, and respect the time that everyone has set a time in particular for this game to be played. If you miss a session, give the GM notice so he can adjust the story accordingly and provide you with the mechanism for gathering information after the fact for your character if you intend to come back. Now, this next one's really big. Don't come into a role-play game with a large group of players as a solo act. You have to remember that you're not the main character. You are only one of an ensemble of characters, and so therefore play a role that enhances a group dynamic rather than one that intentionally undermines it or takes it out. These obligations assure that there is a safe and effective space where everyone can have fun. It's not about limiting the creativity of yourself, anyone else, or the game master, but it's about making sure everyone has room to shine. Okay, as we said in the case of DMs, frameworks like what we're talking about here, this concept that the mechanism itself is the resource or a tool. It's not just about game master preparation. It's not about just the players doing their part. It's about the players stepping up to make the experience better where they can, and that the game master affords them every opportunity for that to occur. A great game isn't about the preparation. I already said that. It's about players and their interactions. So realize that the responsibilities we've talked about today of players makes the game smoother, more engaging, and fun for all, gives everybody an opportunity to really grab a hold of what's going on and make it part of their own. The duties ensure that you have an active, contributing player who wants to be a part of the story and endeavors to do the maximum to get the most fun out of the game. And finally, the obligations really protect the integrity of the game session and the safety of the consumers who are playing. And it also protects the storyline and the very group dynamics that define role-playing games. The best RPGs happen when everybody at the table is invested in the story, respecting the game, and playing with the purpose of having that fun. So the next time you sit down at the table, ask yourself, how can I make this play session better? Not just for me, but for everyone else at the table. When everyone answers that question thoughtfully, the result is going to be absolutely unforgettable. Well, I want to thank you for being here. As always, I'm Jonathan Albin. This is Nikos RPG. We're on the air twice a day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. and 11 p.m., bringing you videos and content really meant to help you have a better game at your table, whether it be Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Cthulhu, or any of the other myriad of titles out there, and especially if you're utilizing the rule system that I devised, which is Nikos RPG. You can check that out at nikosrpg.com, and at the link below, there's a special deal for purchasing the bundle of all of the titles in this first wave. There'll be more information about this coming out, but I want to thank you for your participation. I will see you next time.